So we're doing a double review for Bookworm this week, and honestly it works out pretty well for me given how the two episodes kind of flow together. Been feeling a little under the weather recently, and it's kind of finally caught up to me, but I did take last Monday off just to try to regroup, so just forgive me if I'm a little under the weather in terms of how my voice sounds or anything like that, but just know I honestly think this latest episode, episode 7 of season 3 of Bookworm, might be one of my favorite episodes, period. And I know what I'm about to say might sound weird because from my understanding anyway, I could be mistaken, but just given the responses I've seen to Delia's character, I feel like my opinion on her is probably not the majority opinion. So all I ask is if, you completely disagree with what I'm about to say about Delia, just hear me out, that's all I ask, sort of a thing. But in my honest opinion, despite hating where Delia's mindset's at in terms of, the fact that she's working with and wants the approval of the ugliest, fattest bastard who is the biggest piece of shit, I understand where she's coming from because of how she was raised and honestly, how she was manipulated. So for me, despite not liking what she does, I love her character because of what it offers and where it can really stretch a narrative in a way that you normally don't get to see, because just because characters' actions can make you upset doesn't mean it's a bad thing for the story. And I think in the case of Delia, I think she's a really sweet girl who was dealt a very bad hand in life and has continued to make, what is seen as mistakes because she didn't meet MYNE early enough in her life. And I've always wondered what would be the key to so-called Delia's heart? Like, what would really make her change? Because you would assume it would be MYNE, right? And from what I'm understanding, based on how much she cares about Dirk, that to me is going to be the key. Because there has to be something at some point in this story that makes her no longer loyal, or at the very least not blindly loyal to a man who gives no shits about her and basically wants to sell her off as a prostitute. Like, that's pretty much how it feels, right? And the idea of this baby boy who has the devouring is not anywhere near as close to the insanity that is MYNE's devouring, but it's still pretty good in terms of an upper class, middle class noble there, right? So the idea of her really over the past couple of episodes, from worrying if he's sick to ending this episode, this latest one, basically upset that he's going to be adopted, to even that brief moment in the orphanage, which we've been getting taste throughout seasons 2 and 3, right? About how much she she had a bad life. So for her to kind of almost have that PTSD of not wanting to even go near the door, let alone open it, but then run in to save a little boy from falling to, honestly, could have been his death. Doesn't seem like that crazy, but babies can literally die from the smallest of falls. So for her to freak out and actually go in there, to me, it almost says this baby's going to be the key to finally getting through Delia. For MYNE, it was the hopefulness of letting her open up and maybe kind of maybe not be as closed off as she is, because MYNE knows every time, most of the time that she goes and talks behind her back, MYNE knows that, but she understands the circumstances that led her to be like that. So I'm very curious to see if, based on the last 3 episodes that we have going for this season before we ultimately wait for season 4 sometime, I'm curious to see if we're going to end with Delia maybe admitting to MYNE she has been talking behind her back, she has been passing information off, because this very well could push Delia into the deep end even more if she thinks the one thing that I've truly started to love in my life is going to be ripped away from me. Then screw MYNE. But I have a feeling that MYNE might actually be honest here. And if she's not, I don't see how Delia wouldn't push and really separate herself from MYNE, because based on what's been established, right, Ferdinand is saying, hey, once you're adopted, you could make a contract with this baby as long as no one else knows he has the devouring, because it would be in your right as a noble, so to speak. So the only way I could see her not throwing a temper tantrum and completely going off the rails is if MYNE tells her, listen, this baby has a devouring, you can't tell anyone because I'm going to make a contract someday and make sure he has a great life. If Dirk was a girl, it would have been a lot easier to get him into a better situation, but because he's a boy, it's honestly a lot harder. And I like what they're doing with that relationship there, because even though I hate every time she goes and talks to that fat bastard about what MYNE's doing and things like that, I understand the hand she was dealt that manipulated her thought into being loyal to a side that she shouldn't be. And I feel like this baby is going to be the key, but I feel like the only way the baby could truly break through is if MYNE is honest, but that honesty could also bite her in the ass, so I'm not sure the direction they're going to take it. Either way, I'm loving what Delia's arc has going on in season 3. Maybe that's an unpopular opinion. I have seen a lot of people say like they don't like focusing on Delia focused content. For me, it's honestly some of my favorite in Bookworm, so that's how I'm feeling anyway. But besides the obvious Delia content that I obviously really enjoy, I also like the kind of colored ink in the struggles that they're going with, because it's an interesting thing, because a lot of times when MYNE has an idea, there isn't a lot of hurdles that are hard to overcome. But the idea of the ink and how, for someone who wants to make colored books, right, like colored printing with their ink, it's something that needs to be consistent. So I thought it was a fun addition to essentially introduce the second MYNE to the show, someone who feels like she also has her own Benno, who is kind of feeling like that disappointed father, who just feels like just as crazy as MYNE is. But the fact that they couldn't have a consistent result with the different colors, it's fun to see her struggle in different ways, because not only were they struggling to get the right ink, because they're establishing like painting is something that's so kept a secret that like royals, when they hire someone to make them paint, ultimately like that gets hand delivered. Like people just don't know the secret. And you can understand why, because not only would you be making bank because only a select few could, ultimately it's something like it's probably one of the biggest kept secrets of their world. It was interesting though, because initially when they ended the previous episode, episode 6, with what looked to me almost like chickenpox, I thought what was going to happen was it was going to be an ailment that was going to have short-term ramifications rather than the long-term ones with the devouring. Initially I was a little bummed out, because I thought what was going to happen was, because previously, if you even look at MYNE's mother, like, she's lost a lot of her pregnancies. Like, just the idea of healthcare in this world is almost non-existent. So the idea of, like, simple chickenpox could easily kill this baby. But I like the idea that what it does for the long term makes a lot more sense, especially since they're establishing MYNE wants to make a contract, also making sure, like, it doesn't look like she's playing favorites at the orphanage. And I like the fact that it also springs Delia's character arc right to the forefront into showing something more than just her blind loyalty, but something that she wants, herself there, which is really interesting. To be honest, even though I wouldn't say like last week's episode, episode 6 was one of my favorites, watching 6 and 7 together, it really does create a really interesting atmosphere. Not to mention episode 6 starts off like the first 2 or 3 minutes of it is just a bunch of rich bastards talking some horrible shit about what they want to do to MYNE and just people with the devouring. And it's just like, there is some corrupt shit in this world. Like, there is no excusing it. And I love how they can bring up such mature themes but not have it feel overwhelmingly depressing, given its cute atmosphere, the chibi designs, to the colorful palette. But just seeing Bookworm in all its glory, like, it really does feel like from seasons 1 now all the way to season 3, each season has gotten progressively better, thanks to obviously a good source material getting better with time, but also the studio really finding their groove and letting the smaller moments really pop with is such great expressive reactions. I honestly thought Delia had some of the more expressive reactions that we've seen in the show to date. But thoughts if you have any on either last week's episode or this one down below. Let me know what you're thinking, and hope to see maybe in the last few. Leave a like if you enjoyed, and subscribe if you're new around here. Till next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.